Hello everyone, this is Pomum, and today I just wanted to do a bit of a rant-like video. I did one similar in the past. Had a lot of fun with it, honestly, because it's a different format from what I differently do. And I wanted to comment on flexibility in Fire Emblem and how flexibility really, in my opinion, is hurting the series more than it's helping it, especially in the case of Three Houses. Now, I recently finished a Silver Snow Let's Play, and I decided I should also finish a run that I had left hanging for a while, and that was um, my Blue Lions wrong emblem run, as one of my friends dubbed it. Uh, my focus on this run was I was going to use the worst possible class for every student every teacher, any unit. So for example, I decided which was the worst class based on their proficiencies. In most of the cases, Dimitri became a warlord that had access as his physical choice of weaponry, because after all he is bad at reason and access. The do is bad at faith and riding, so I made him a holy knight. Things like that. I am not going to enumerate all of them because it would take a lot of time. Even I have some units in the back that you're not going to see here that I made bad classes because I wanted to, like Hero Hanneman and Bishop Leone. Bishop Leone, I think I have it as an adjutant to Dimitri, so you might even see it. I think she levels during this recording. The point here is, when I started the run, this really seemed like a good idea to me. Like, okay, there's a way of playing this game where you basically some classes are telegraphed for certain units. I think um, everyone has used Ingrid as a Falconet. So using Ingrid as something completely different, like a warrior in this case, might have its charm because you are doing, you're doing something original with the unit. But while training all these units into their non-optimal classes, I realized that I wasn't really having much fun at all. And that's probably due to the fact that the optimal classes are there are there for a reason. And maybe you want to deviate a little bit from the optimal classes, but you never should do so much that you go to the complete opposite. Let me give you an example here. In the case of Lysithia is really good as a Gremory, and I think most people agree that her best class is probably Gremory because of doubling the uses of Warp and doubling the uses of Dark Magic, the fact that the other magical alternatives focus on Black Magic, not on Dark Magic. So she's especially good as a Gremory. That doesn't mean that as a Dark Knight or even as a Mortal Savant she's bad. If you value some things, like for example movement in Mortal Savant is better than Gremory, having Canto on the Dark Knight, and Dark Knight does have Dark Tomfer, that's really valuable too. So maybe if you don't value her utility as much and you want her to be more of a combat unit, then you'd prefer Dark Knight. That doesn't mean Dark Knight is the best option, it just means it's a good alternative for Lysithia. If you want to go really weird with Lysithia, you might even go for a purely physical class with swords, For example, you might want Lysithia to become a sword master to be able to use Astra with Bloodgun or something crazy like that. But the thing is, that's the craziest you should go, really, because doing something that's completely logical with Lysithia's proficiencies, like Paladin Lysithia, what's even the point in doing that? Or even more to the point, what's the advantage? What's the difference between Paladin Lysithia and, I don't know, Paladin Linhardt? What's the difference? They both have the most basic combat arts. They are both. I think Lysithia is bad at lances. Linhardt is not particularly bad at any of the proficiencies. So Lysithia is maybe going to have a harder time. That's it. They are not interesting. Their combat arts, which differentiate them as a unit, are not present there. Their growths are not suited, so they are going to reach the minimums of the class, which is some decent defense, some decent attack, some middling speed, and then they are going to affect slightly those bases and those growths with their own personal growths. But in the end, the class is, the unit is diluted, completely diluted into the class. So the only thing that matters is the class. If you use a unit in a class where they can use a lot of their combat art, a lot of their spell lists, if they are a magical unit, then suddenly they become differentiated. Mercedes and Flame and Marianne are interesting as magical units, not because they have high magic in their growths. That's just, well, obviously convenient. No, the reason they are good is because they have a good spell list, and because they don't really have a lot of good physical combat arts or combat arts of any kind. So why would you put them through the pain of a physical class if you can have a more interesting unit? In the process of trying to create unique units that nobody has ever used before, I think people are just destroying completely the base units, to the point that the base units don't even matter. The base units don't exist, and is the fault of the game for giving you such flexibility, but it's also the fault of the players to fall into, the trap of, oh, I can do something completely stupid, so I will. If you told me to my face, I'm such a good Fire Emblem player because, I'm so original, I did, I don't know, I'm just dropping examples here, so don't feel personally offended, but I'm so crazy, I'm so wacky, I did Bishop Ash. Okay, so do you want me to tell you how you did Bishop Ash? You put faith as a goal. That's it. That's it. There's no other way. Three Houses really has... Three Houses has made training so conditional in your intentions that the process is not interesting at all, because I already know what you did. I already know what you did. You just gave the unit a goal to what you needed to pass a certain number of classes. You knew Ash, to become a bishop, was going to have at least like B faith or so you have to raise his faith. It's easier to raise faith in priest. You first try to attempt for the C faith in that. You also realize he has a decent spell list, so you probably train his reason to. It's just I'm not surprised. I'm not impressed by someone making Bishop Ash, and that's just wrong because Bishop Ash is factually weird. So I should be right. I should be impressed. I should be laughing at the fact that you are using Ash as a bishop. But I'm not, because it's not fun anymore. The process to reach that point has been made so simple by the creators of Three Houses that I'm not going to question you of how you got there. In Awakening, more or less, we could more or less have the same problem because of second seals being so easily obtainable after a certain point. Okay, if I see, but it's still probably more weird. Like if I see someone using Great Knight Tharia, I'm going to say, yeah, okay, that's pretty crazy. And to reach that point, you either have to reclass into Knight and go all the way to the promotion, or you had to go all the way to level 10 promoted and then reclass into Great Knight. So it's still a larger process, and even if you don't want to admit it, Awakening is less grindy than Three Houses. Like Three Houses is the grinding game. Awakening has an open map, allows you to go anywhere at any time between chapters, and it still feels less grindy. Because what do you do? Like, oh, okay, this unit is lacking like 2 levels, so maybe I could go to a skirmish and then go back. It's just like a patch you put on the builds of your units. Extensive grinding in Awakening, of course, becomes boring, just like it does in Three Houses. But it seems like Three Houses is adapted around that extensive grinding. Awakening can be played, in a juggernaut fashion. I'm not saying Awakening or Three Houses are one better than the other, but the grinding aspect is better handled in Awakening. Yeah, even Awakening handles it better. And that's probably because of the class system doing things differently. The reclassing is actually kind of punishing you because there's internal level that's going up. So your units are getting more and more and more difficult to train. So after a while, it becomes impossible to eternally accumulate. You can pick favorites, and that's something you should be able to do. But picking favorites isn't the only thing you can do. Then Fates, I think, does it even better, because there's, instead of only internal, there is an internal level, I think, but I don't know how it works exactly, so I'm not going to talk on that. The point in Fates is your units are in a class, and getting out of that class is actually kind of difficult and also sort of punishing because of weapon levels in Fates rising so slowly. So when you reclass, you kind of do what you also should be doing in Three Houses, which is at least keeping one of your weapon levels so that things become easy. In Conquest also you don't have grinding, so again, another impediment to your really going around and around between classes. I'm not saying sometime getting, I don't know, Berserker Leo couldn't be interesting, but the reason it's interesting is because if you tell me you have Berserker Leo, I know it isn't as simple as, oh, I just trained access with Leo. No, Leo doesn't have access in his set in the first place. Did you marry him to Charlotte? Did you marry him to a female Corrin with fighter in her class? I think those are the two only options, and there's at least a decision to take, and that decision affects the other characters. So picking favorites affects the whole planning of your campaign. I find that with Three Houses giving you the gold system, they really aren't doing any favor to you. Like people treat it like, oh, incredible amount of things you can control, but in the end, it's just as bare bones as basic GBA Fire Emblem, because you go through the process of the goals, you set the goals, and now you are fighting the same type of battles as in GBA, but knowing that you're going to get a boost to certain weapons. And even worse, you even start in blank page classes that allow you to branch in any direction. In my opinion, Three Houses really doesn't know how to do the flexibility well. You should either go for absolute flexibility and completely eliminate the concept of classes, so that any unit can train any type of weaponry, and then, you know, go into a blank slate. Oh, you're training horses, then you're going to slowly get more movement and suddenly get canto, and that's going to factor into you as a unit. But no, instead, training horses is just a requirement to pass a horse class, and the horse class is the horse class, and that's it. I don't know. I feel like it could have been handled so much better, because the idea of flexibility is never bad. Giving flexibility is not bad per se. The problem is giving too much flexibility to a game and trying too hard to make it become an RPG, when Fire Emblem is not an RPG, it's a tactical RPG. The RPG elements are supposed to motivate you to train your units, but in the end, training your units is not for the pleasure of training your units. Training your units is there to beat the game. So if you are able to beat the game much easier, much simpler, much more enjoyable with another build, why are you going through the pain? And I'm asking this to myself, why did I go through the pain of training Dark Knight Raphael? It was horrible. It was horrible. He wasn't able. He gets doubled by everything. He doesn't do enough damage. Kanto is not enough to justify training his riding when he's so shit at it. Late recruitment, because this is Blue Lions, also made the fact that his proficiencies started low much worse. His spell list is clearly not suited because he only has fire and ball cannon. So why did I train Raphael as a Dark Knight? Because I wanted to? Is that really enjoyment? Or when you do that, are you enjoying yourself, or are you just being a contrary and saying, oh, fuck those elitists, yeah, I use Dark Knight Raphael because it's so cool, I can do whatever I want. You can do whatever you want, but please don't lock yourself into doing stupid shit to prove to nobody, because nobody really cares. I did this because I thought, honestly, it would be enjoyable, it would be fun. In some units I found it's fun, but if I analyze it coldly, I can extrapolate the reasons why it is fun. Why is Warrior Ingrid fun? Because Ingrid has a lot of speed but has a bit of a strength problem. The warrior lets her have that strength, and she also gets Death Blow. Death Blow is fun because suddenly you are doing the damage you want to do. Is it that complicated? No. Is it an accomplishment to take advantage of this flexibility? No. Final Fantasy VII can be all the flexible it wants. Once you give the same material to two different units, they become more or less the same. Bravely Default can be as flexible as it wants. And of course, things like Elden Ring, depending completely on builds, can be as flexible as they want. But for a tactical gameplay, where you are supposed to find a solution to the problem presented in front of you, not to just decide that the solution is to go back, train, and try again to Juggernaut through it, I think Fire Emblem shouldn't be flexible.